From the Black Swan Media Studios, deep inside a secret underground bunker, we're speaking to freedom-loving patriots from all around the country and the world. Welcome to the Resistance. This is John Crump, live.
Hi, everyone out there. I think Ding and 717 out there, Ron Bear, Kurt 24, channel member, and some other people out there as well. Thank you for joining me. This is John Crump Live, and I see MC out there. Well, Marconi Armory, Tim Harper, all you guys out there. You guys mean the world to me. Today, we're going to have my favorite firearms designer, DJ Play Nice, Johnny Barr. Guess who we have on today? He is a guy that I believe is the next John Browning, or maybe even there. Jordan, I can get you 20 signed copies if you want. Just let me know. But his name is Tim Hoffman, and he's from Hoffman Tactical. But before we bring him in there, we're going to bring a guy on that is spending his first full day at Being 60. Flying Rich.
Thank you, Crump. Thank you. Remind me to kick your ass when I see you.
All right. There you go. How you doing, Rich?
Good. Try to clean my office between talking to you and Dark all day long.
Yeah, well, this stuff happens, and we're gonna bring on the man of the hour. Rich is gonna be leading most of this conversation because I'm doing multiple things at once again.
Huh? But Crumpy's got multiple jobs. And it's Tim Hoffman. Tim, how's it going, man?
Welcome back to the show, guys. How's everything going? For our audience.
Tim is raging on.
So, I'm going to say right now, I mean, there's some stuff I really like about it. Like, I legitimately like that there's
tell me what you're talking about. Career Live, they have no idea what you're talking about.
So today I'm trying out Fusion 360. So
Fusion 360 is what I use, by the way.
It's by far the most popular CAD system.
That was going to be my next,
Yeah, they're trying to make it as the only one. So this is it's Autodesk's Fusion 360. It's their CAD program. And I do SolidWorks, so Dassault System SolidWorks. It's kind of it's another option. So I am very used to that. That's what I've always used. So I'm trying out Fusion mostly because I want to use the simulation and other tools, not the main CAD. Like SolidWorks just works just fine for CAD. But I want to use those add-ons, and SolidWorks charges way too much money to get those add-ons. So Fusion's a lot more affordable. So hey, I thought I'd give it a try. I'm just kind of looking at the interface, and I don't like a lot of things with it. Just like a lot of it's biased because it's preference bias. You've used something for a long time, so moving to something new is always going to feel like it's not designed right. But there are some things I can look at and just like they should have done it that way. Because it would have had no downside. There's some little features and stuff that are missing, but I do like the way they do some things. Like with constraints, you can select a constraint tool, and then you can go and add as many constraints as you want just by clicking on stuff. And we don't have that in SolidWorks. You have to click select items and then hit a button, and it's kind of a pain. So I kind of like this way of doing it. So there's some things that are definitely improved. That's why I don't like SolidWorks. I have no loyalty to SolidWorks because they have things which they've had for 20 years, which would be an easy fix, and they've never done it. So Fusion looks like they're a little bit more dynamic and they fix more things.
It's funny every time you use a new tool that you're used to the old tool, you know how the old tool works, and there's that learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. It's preference bias. I don't know if that's the right term, but you're used to using something, so you move to something new, and it's unfamiliar. You don't know exactly what you're doing, so that makes you feel like the old tool is better until you get more familiar with it. But there are some things that don't like the appearance. It's like that soft, modern, fluffy appearance.
Yeah, I don't like the flattened UI that
Yeah, like low
everything is
resolution.
using.
What about dark
Yeah.
mode?
So dark mode is a kid thing. I all you know, Gen whatevers want the
No,
dark mode.
So I was never into dark mode until like more recently. I was like, hey, like everyone's talking about it, I should try this out. And it's actually, I mean, kind of cool. Like it looks a little cooler.
Well, all right. So I liked dark mode back when you had tube monitors because it made the eye strain a lot easier. Now the flat screens, dark mode, light mode, whatever, it doesn't matter. Really, the eye strain factor isn't a big deal.
Well, blue light is what kills eyes.
And I gotta tell you, so Putin, Bob, Putang is saying, is that the Hoffman Tactical? Awesome family, and that was one of the things.
So
Like I've talked to Tim's mom. I've talked to Tim, and I met Tim finally for the first time. Your family is gangsta. I'm like totally impressed with them. Your sister, your brother, your mom. Everybody helping out. You guys were one hell of a team.
Let's admit it, guys. My sister is gangster, and the rest of us just try to keep up.
She's a total operator. I'm like, holy cow, look at this.
Yeah, your mom is really cool, though. I will have to say. Your sister's cool, too, and your brother and everything. It's great freaking family.
Well, thanks. I'm sure they'll appreciate to hear that.
And they're long-term GOA members.
They are, yes, actually.
And actually, something I didn't know until I was like talking to Tim's mom is you guys live off the grid for like a long time, right?
Yeah, everything's totally off the grid, and that's actually what I've been working on today. Is looking at not for anything I'm putting in right now, but I might put it on a different location in the future. But for someone else, I'm looking at doing a solar mount. So that's actually why I got Fusion, is I wanted to do finite element analysis on it, just to try to understand a few more things. Like I don't really need. I don't feel like you need.
So you want to do photovoltaic sun tracking?
No, tracking is a complete scam. It makes
no sense. Unless
you're on the space station, you have no space. Well, no, that doesn't make any sense either. Yeah, tracking's a scam. Don't fall for it.
Oh, okay.
Buy more panels. Any scheme you come up with, the better solution is buy more panels.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So my wife listens to Dan Bongino, and if Dan Bongino said walk to the nearest bridge and jump off, she would run and jump.
I'm not sure. And I recognize the name, but I can't place a face on that, to be honest. Yeah,
he had a contract with Fox, and he was on with Hannity versus Geraldo Rivera, who I hate. And I don't hate anyone, but I mean despise. Let's just say despise. And he had a show on Fox.
Did you just say
Geraldo, the half Jewish Puerto Rican guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's Geraldo, not Geraldo.
Well, it's just funny to me that he's like, oh, this Geraldo persona will do me much better if I'm the Latino as opposed to being the Jewish guy. So he emphasized the Geraldo part. And anyhow, and I'm not a racist, I'm just pointing out that he chose a particular path that he thought would be more advantageous for his career. And how's Al Capone's vault doing? So, anyhow, Dan Bongino says something my wife, will just dive onto it like a, person diving on a hand grenade. And she's like, we got to get a generator. We need a generator. And I'm like, hey, how about, the Fed is going to give me 30% towards solar panels. Let me check out batteries and solar panels. And I hate to say it, everybody you talk to about solar panels, in all of the deals, none of them make any sense. There was a leasing deal.
Are you talking about talking to a company who install them for you?
Yes.
Those companies, as far as I know, and I have my brother went with one of those companies which was a bad move. But anyway, they're universally, well, I don't know about universally, but the vast majority of them are actual scammers. Like the people you're talking to aren't scammers because the company they hire a separate marketing company. They have a bank which handles the loans. They hire an installer. So the people you're dealing with are companies who do it legitimately with little different pieces, but the company you're working with is actually a scammer who will actually move the money to a foreign account, launder it, and then go out of business. They do it over and over again. It's not an isolated, it's a complete scam. So if you are installing solar panels, it's imperative you design and do the system yourself. Otherwise, because no one understands solar. It's people that most I got horribly designed.
And I got a question about that. So I have 2 hybrid cars. And I'm like, hybrid makes a lot of sense to me. How come people aren't doing like a diesel generator in like Powerwall or something working like a Powerwall?
That's what off-grid is actually, unless you have enough solar panels. That's what we did for some time before improving the battery and improving the number of solar panels, which we just actually we're working on right now. When you're off-grid, a lot of times the number one issue with off-grid systems is they don't have enough solar panels. We didn't have enough solar panels. The vast majority of off-grid systems don't have enough solar panels. They have 1/10 the solar panels they need. So instead of getting the power from solar, you just run a generator a couple hours a day, 1 hour a day, charge your batteries up, and you run that on your system. It's not optimal running a generator, having to buy fuel. It's better to use solar, but if that's what you have, that's what you do. So that is kind of a de facto system for a lot of people. The other option is to have grid connected, charge your batteries with grid. If the grid goes, basically an uninterruptible power supply like setup, but that's, still grid connected. So.
Yeah, so and actually I've been talking to MC about a couple of things, but we didn't hit on like a diesel hybrid system. And I was shocked. So a lot of times when you're dealing heavy equipment and you lease stuff, they'll actually do a lease and however many years, and then they'll do $1 buyback at the end of the lease. And your solar panels have a limited lifespan.
It's pretty long.
And what's that?
It's a pretty long lifespan.
So it's like 20 or 30 years, but it degrades over time.
It's probably, if you size the system right, at 25, 30 years, your solar panels will still be putting out 70%, 60%.
Oh, okay.
At this point, we don't know because the current solar technology has not been fielded long enough. But we have panels right here that are at this point 25 years old and still putting out 50, 60%. And that's really old technology.
Now, are your panels in a field? Or are they on your roof? Where are they?
So roof mounting is kind of a bad idea unless you have the right roof, because it's very difficult to do properly. The solar panels are here mounted on telephone poles with bracketry and such. So it's like an array of panels on a line of posts. And we have some on the barn, on the face of the barn. So trying to keep it off of roofs. That's what I was working on today, trying to work out a better solar panel mount that can, mount not on a separate structure for solar panels that's high off the ground, so you can still use the space underneath it. And it's a little tricky to do, especially economically. So
yeah, my friend, he has a bunch of solar panels. He has filled, and his field is just full of solar panels, and he's totally off the grid.
That's pretty based. That's pretty
He
cool.
has a lot of land. And
so I'm assuming you got a well on your property, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have city water?
No city water.
And you have a septic system?
Yeah, the only thing we have is I'm trying to figure a way of not having to connect to the internet. Like, it's got to be a better alternative, like our own little network. We can like trade data. I don't know. It's kind of tricky. They kind of have a monopoly on it of sorts. The internet is composed of lots of smaller networks, and they all have mutual agreements to trade data, and they can keep little guys out that way.
Yeah, they have pairing points.
Yep.
Like Equinix and Ashburn, for example, is a huge pairing point where
so you're kind of out of that ballpark because you are not a big fish like them, so you don't get to do that.
Well, you can always just connect to the right location covertly, and then you're good. But
covertly.
Yeah, that's a little off topic. So I've been getting into some network stuff.
So I think what you need to do is you need a couple of drones flying over convenience food places with open Wi-Fi, and then you have another. What's that?
And then you just put like a VPN tunnel into a.
You have a tethered drone, and then you would have to have. All right. So what you got to do is you've got to split your connection to multiple different food chains that have open Wi-Fi. have an Amazon instance where you join up all of the tunnels and then you go out from there. You're shaking your head? No? That's not
Amazon.
the way to go.
What I would do is covertly put a microwave receiver and transmitter on one of those buildings or a couple of those buildings and have like a microwave up high to shoot out and do a peer-to-peer microwave connection between the buildings.
Some ubiquity, a ubiquity access point.
Yeah. And then
Those are really cool, by the way. Like they're so cheap and they work so well. Like there's a lot of options. They're pretty cool.
Exactly. That's what I would do. So you don't have to worry about drones. And
So Ron Bear says airship. He must know who you are.
Evidently he does. Yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing. I didn't want to mention it though. I didn't want to, derail the stream. So
yeah, but I mean, but that's what I would do to do it. I think that would be the most feasible.
Yep. But yeah, so back to the solar thing. Yeah, there's a lot of options with solar, but there's most of the information that you will read online. Well, all the information you'll read online, and most what people will tell you is just really, really bad advice. It's not based it's not based on anything. And also, I don't understand the whole leasing thing, because why are people so obsessed with leasing solar panels? Like lease,
unless there's a financial write-off to it, but
I mean, the only reason you lease anything is for playing with taxes, basically.
Right. Right.
And if you're not playing that game, then there's no point. Like you're leasing vehicles. If you want to lease vehicles for tax reasons to play tax games, like that's fine. I mean, it makes financial sense possibly. But other than that, like why would you do it? It doesn't make sense.
Because everything's going to a licensing model in the world.
But it's going to it. But in the case of solar, it's totally voluntary because you can buy everything and have it shipped to your house on an 18-wheeler. It's not like it's difficult to do.
I'm just stating the government's going to find a way to tax you for sunlight.
They want to try. They want to try. No, they want to try.
I mean, they tax you for freaking rainwater for sunlight. No, actually, I know a story. I read a story, I should say. There is someone in, I think it was New Jersey, or maybe it was Florida. It was Florida and New Jersey. It was Florida. They were totally 100% on solar. So like, we don't need to. We can get rid of our electrical because we're 100% on solar, and the electrical company sued them, saying, "Hey, you still have to pay."
That's retarded.
You still have to pay a connection fee. They're like, "Well, we're not connected." They're like, "It doesn't matter. You still have to pay a connection fee, and you still have to be connected."
Barrett API transformer. It's a really, really simple recipe. We just had the electric company come and take the transformer. They said, "Hey guys, we're shutting it down. Come get your transformer." And they were kind of dragging their feet a little, but they did it. So
yeah, but in Florida, they won.
How is that? I don't know how that's possible. Like the utility is entitled to your business.
Well, it's like a Florida law stating that you have to be connected to the grid.
Oh shoot! Yeah, there is something about that. So
that's kind of law. That's impossible. Like just disconnect from the grid and like tell them to do something about it.
Well, they did. They filed charges.
Well, I won't say this. I won't say anything more on public internet. I mean, on a public live stream. But
yeah, and the people actually lost.
That's ridiculous.
There was some lady, she disconnected from like water, and she had a well, and she was in town, and this was in Florida, and the town went after her.
Yeah, and in Florida, you have to be connected to utilities.
So Florida at the very, very bottom of my list of good states.
It's amazing what's wrong with Florida, and as much as
same way. Texas is the same way. It's a really screwed up state. It's funny. They perceptions are.
Tim?
Yeah. I'll fix that. Just a second.
Okay.
Give me a second.
I call it blinking.
So this is probably not the talk people thought they were going to get when we had Tim Hoffman on. But I just thought, Tim's family, I was like super impressed with. This was something I was talking with his mom. We had, I don't know if it was longer than an hour conversation. And All right, so Tim's back with us.
Just a minute. Okay, yeah, the battery shouldn't have died, but I didn't. I thought I had a full one in there because the Canon battery indicator does not function properly. So
Gotcha.
Okay.
So Tim, who's the baddest operator in your family?
baddest operator. I mean, you
Like-
met her, so no guns though, just knives.
Knives. Oh shoot.
Yeah, literally. So yeah.
Oh gosh, that's too funny. So,
In a dark way, it is kind of funny, actually. Yeah.
is she like Buffy the Vampire Slayer? What's?
I wouldn't really connect you with that reference. I don't think. But yeah, I would definitely say so.
Did you used to watch
Wait.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Rich,
Did you?
No. Occasionally,
you look
back
like
in the
a guy
day.
that would.
Occasionally.
Occasionally back in the. It's kind of one of those things when I actually watch TV and I'd flip through the channels and it was on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I did catch it a couple of times.
I never did, so but I kind of know the reference. Something with
Yeah,
Batman.
and I'm talking the OG. I don't know how long ago that goes. So we're talking longer than 17, 18 years ago, probably 20 years ago, I guess. Because I think there was a remake of that.
Most likely that kind of popular culture type of thing. They normally try to milk what they can out of it. So
So
most likely several.
for people that don't know, you designed firearms, and one of them is the Orca. So you have an AR-15 and you have an AR-9 version, right?
No AR-9 version as of now. I'm going to, and I need to work on it. I haven't started that project yet.
Okay, and so you have an AR-9 lower.
Yeah,
then.
but it's just an AR lower, so it still requires a standard AR-9 upper. Let's see, I have it back there with no upper on it.
Can't touch it. Can't touch it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, but if anybody can, get through that blur back there, it's on the table. So yeah,
Cool.
it's AR-9 lower, which that's what I'm working on my new lowers now, and
I'll be right back.
it's a full redesign. Oh, go ahead.
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yes, defect.
I see.
Oh! He's printing.
Yep. I actually had that. Woke up, came in the shop this morning, and I actually had that on my printer. What happened is I swapped some SD cards around because I wanted to print with a different nozzle, and the one I was printing an existing file on, I had changed some stuff with the nozzle, cleaning it out, and I did not readjust my Z height, the Z offset. So the first layer was too high.
Oh, okay.
So the adhesion was very poor.
And that was with what printer?
That was a Prusa.
Okay.
The
And
problem
you don't have like auto bed. Well, it doesn't matter if you have auto bed leveling or
Doesn't
not with a Prusa because where your
it's-
probe.
it's still a 3. It's not a proprietary hot end that locks into place. So
Right,
they do.
right.
I mean, that does exist. I think the new Mark IV has that. It's not proprietary.
Oh,
It's
okay.
E3D makes it, but it's
I gotta say, the bamboo has made me one lazy SOB. It just
so the bamboo, the hot end indexes, and of course the probe on the bamboo is the nozzle. So they are able to get around any indexing issues with the nozzle. I guess that's how
Yeah.
they do it. They don't have
Yep.
to worry about nozzle height compared to sensor height because the nozzle is the sensor, which is a pretty clever way of doing it. I think Vorons might have done it that way. I think they might do it that way as well. Not 100%. I think it's one of the options.
yeah. I'm pretty sure there's pressure sensors at the 3 points where the bed is mounted, and that's how they calculate the bed height.
Yep.
So
Yep,
yeah,
they have
pretty
some-
cool. So I guess
I've had issues with the bamboo though. I mean, there is a distinct problem with the heat break. I cannot figure it out. I need to actually cross section some of the hot ends to find out. But I've had clogs which I cannot clear out. The nozzle itself is fine. Its material accumulates in the heat break and ends up resulting in a very bad jam, which isn't fixed.
I've had zero issues with stuff
what
like that.
filament are you printing with though?
I've done a lot of PLA plus and a lot of carbon fiber nylon.
So I'm exclusively printing with carbon fiber nylon and their PET carbon fiber.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I've noticed.
Now, are you using the bamboo filaments? Whose filaments are you using?
I was using Polymaker nylons, and I'm using the bamboo PET carbon fiber, which is what I've been printing
Okay.
with in the last couple months. That's what I've been using.
Okay,
month and
I'm
a half.
using the Sane Smart, and I've had like zero issues with it.
Interesting. It's been more with the PET carbon fiber, I would say, than the nylon. It's like fibers are accumulating, something's accumulating in there, and I have not ever seen that on an E3D hot end. So there's something with their heat break, which is, I would say, not optimized, needs to be looked at. So I gotta figure out more about it before I know exactly what it is.
Sorry, guys.
No worries. So there's other concerns and stuff had with the bamboo. There's a lot of security concerns with the bamboo, especially going down the road.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. And I'm sorry. Now that I don't have a job, I could spend some time looking at it. I could put it on a VLAN and take a look at what's going on. What's getting...
So I tell people right now your best bang for your buck is a Bamboo Lab P1S. It's great hardware. The firmware is usable. It's all around. Yeah. It's your absolute best printer you're going to get for under $1,000. Like it's a really good printer.
Oh, totally. And if you just want to print, you want to have like a effing print. It is the Apple of 3D printers.
You're going to
my bamboo just spaghettified my Mandalorian helmet.
No,
printing too fast, most likely.
It didn't knock over. You didn't like.
No, just
it still had bed adhesion.
Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly what happened.
Is it skipped steps? Did the hot end skip?
Yeah, I believe it did.
See, I don't think they have detection for that. I don't know. I was surprised. The bamboo does not have power panic. It does not have power out recovery. At least the P1S doesn't. Maybe the full one does. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but I have a UPS on all of my printers.
Yeah. But there's some features which seem like, and the P1S's firmware is terrible. I have a P1P, but it's the same interface as far as I understand. It freezes up at times. It's the way they do things to get around. It's kind of buggy and backward. So that could use some improvement, but it's not a huge deal. Like the printer itself, the hardware itself is really good, but the firmware in the background's a little bit.
I'll tell you, my general beef is most of 3D printers. So I go back to the ANET A8. That was open source. That's my first 3D printer. The Ender 3, I'm pretty sure that's open source also. The Prusas are all open source. So if I did have one issue, and it was my fault. But what happened is I had carbon fiber nylon get all inside the print head, and I spent 3 frickin' hours with a soldering iron and like needle nose pliers.
And what I did was just throw the heat end away, replace it, and put a new one in there. That's the exact same thing you do on the. So what I like about my number one thing I like about the bamboo printer is that the hot end module, and it's also a downside because there's issues with it, which I can't just replace it with somebody else's.
Right.
But what I like about it is the entire hot end module, the heat break, the hot end itself, and the cold end, the cold side, is all one piece that very, very easily, 2 screws, you can replace it, put a new one in there.
Right.
And I really like that. The problem I have with the Prusas and a lot of other printers, the Prusa specifically, worse than other printers, is that the entire hot end assembly is quite complex. And if you want to replace your entire extruder, or not the extruder, but you want to replace the hot end, heat break, and cold end, or one of those components, you have to tear the whole thing apart, and the wiring is a nightmare. So that's
because the wiring goes all the way back to the loom to the motherboard.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I like the way that I like that aspect of the bamboo, and I don't feel it would be that hard to integrate those kind of features in other printers. Manufacturers. Yeah. That was just one of those things. Was kind of something people should have been doing.
Yeah, having a quick connect at the print head is like, and I would not have another printer without that, because like the Enders, a lot of times you have the thermistor go bad, and to be able to just unscrew the thermistor, screw another one in, and quick plug it at the print head. That makes so much sense. But my beef with the Bamboo P1P was that, you know what? Instead of spending 3.5 freaking hours trying to pull carbon fiber nylon out of the cover on the hot end, If I could have just printed another hot end on any other printer I owned, I would have been done. I could have just kept, I could have printed another cover, slapped it on, and kept going.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. It's, and so what I tell people about as I was saying earlier, is the thermistor. Yeah. Is that if there is, so first of all, if you want to get a printer and you want to get a good one, get the P1S, use it, but be extremely cautious with it. Don't get over enthusiastic about the company. I see a lot of like almost euphoria over Bamboo, and I have a huge problem with that because I see them as a very sketchy company, and just because they have good hardware does not mean that they're an awesome company. Like there's a bit of a disconnect there. So
and yeah, I'm not a fanboy of anyone. And look, an Ender 3 is a great printer. You got to do a lot of tuning. I've heard a lot of people relate to me that like, oh, I had an Ender 3, I couldn't get it to work. I gave it to a coworker, he got it work. I hate him. It's a hobbyist thing, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, meaning you have to know how to work the thing. You have to know everything about the machine and be intimate with it. Where the Bamboo, for the most part, it's like push your dummy.
Yes, for sure to some degree. There's still all the issues with moisture and filament. There's still all the issues with nozzle clog, which is a huge problem. All the the Bamboo slicer settings aren't very good. So there's a lot of stuff you still have to learn and know. You can kind of get tricked into thinking you don't need to learn if you're a newbie buying a Bamboo, but it's still an awesome printer. Like I don't want to take away from how awesome a printer is. It's a really well put together, and what makes it so awesome is the price. Like it's a really good printer that costs less than $1,000, and that's makes it very accessible. So that's a really cool thing.
Well, let me ask you a question. You talked about the settings in the Bamboo not being perfect or whatever, and not being optimal. From looking at the settings that they did change, by going down to like 2 walls instead of using like the standard or 3, and there's some other settings, it looks like they were going for speed over.
Yes, and that's a totally different like thing in the 3D printing community in general, is that there's an obsession with speed, which I could really care less about. Like speed does matter to some degree, but this massive push for really fast prints results in prints that are always weaker.
And I think it depends on what you're printing. If you're printing dust collectors, crap that you're going to throw on a shelf, fine. If you're printing firearms, then we got an issue.
There are some, like for production, if you have like a print farm, there are some production parts which it just doesn't matter. You can print them lightning fast and it makes sense. But for a lot, especially so if you're in a non-production setting, printing parts for yourself, especially firearms parts, high speed printing is really irrelevant. Like it just doesn't. I print everything at 60 millimeters per second and less. Most of my stuff I print at 40 to 60 millimeters per second, including in the Bamboo. My profile for the Bamboo is very, very similar in speeds and everything to the profile for my Prusas. I don't, because the printer can run faster and reduce ringing, but I just don't need those speeds, and the slower speeds will always produce better quality. So why would I just push something out in 4 hours instead of 16 hours when I don't actually need it in 4 hours? Now, it is nice to have those speeds there for some times when you want to really print something really quick. So, but in the most cases, the speed is just a gimmick and not actually something which you need. So that's kind of my view of it. It's a selling point which is mostly not relevant to a lot of people, especially in the 3D printing gun world. I mean, as I said, there are definitely applications where speed would be awesome, but it's a little more gimmicky. What I tell people is if there is a company which is going to make a printer which will not print firearms, Bamboo is currently in a position where they could do that today if they wanted.
Shit.
So just think about it. Think about what resources they have. They could require connection to the internet and registration. With one firmware update, they can require connection to just like DJI. DJI already does this, and there are a lot of ties between DJI and Bamboo. So,
well, the creators of Bamboo came from DJI.
Exactly, and DJI is a company which is a model which should be very concerning to people. They're a very, very bad company. So DJI, I mean, so Bamboo could do a similar thing. They could require registration, and then every time you do a print, they just have to upload the G code or something to their AI cloud system. Because I see people always talk about you have a printer and there's no way it can recognize a gun. Like it'd be so easy to get around that. Well, actually, that's false. All they have to do is upload it to their AI cloud system. They can inspect the file, see if it's a gun or not, and then give you a return saying, no, you can't print that, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. That is a path Bamboo is currently capable of doing. All of the infrastructure is in place.
Right.
Now, with like my Bamboo P1P, I never intend to do a firmware update. There's unless they do something absolutely dramatic to fix the interface, which they're probably not going to do, there's zero reason for me to update the firmware on it. I don't connect to the internet. I don't intend to. So that's kind of my take on it. Like I have the printer and there's nothing they can do about it. But
so you're dropping an SD card into the printer and you're running your Bamboo not connected to Wi-Fi or anything?
Well,
Correct,
the new firmware actually allows you to print directly to the Bamboo without going through the cloud
on the local area network.
Yeah.
So for me, that's not because I use the Bamboo to print parts for my kits. As well, I'll print other gun parts for it as well. But grabbing an SD card, throwing it in the computer is not an obstacle for me at all. Some people like to print like from their hotel room 600 miles away. I think you did a post on that. That doesn't do anything for me really, because the printer needs to be cleaned. I need to make sure that the nozzle's not clogged. There's a lot of stuff there, that can go wrong where the printers, and I have to be able to get the part off the printer. Like why print something if I'm not there? So for my application, I really don't care about cloud connectivity and anything like that. I come in here and manually start the printers, inspect them, clean them, because that all that actual hardware stuff has to be done on a pretty regular basis to keep everything up to spec and good functioning. So that's all that cloud stuff. Not really a big issue for me. I can understand the convenience for some people there. Being able to monitor your prints.
When I was running fairly regular prints, I had everything set up with Octoprint, and I would VPN into my home network. So no cloud. It was all, my home network, period. And, I could kick off a print. I could monitor it because I had webcams on it, the whole shooting match.
That's kind of cool. I know you're into that kind of, you do a lot of like Internet of Things type of stuff. That's kind of along those lines. Yeah.
Right. So the other beef, like I've been saying about the Bamboo, is the open source. It's like, you know what? Just the way I could use the cloud-based Spaghetti Detective, I run a local instance of Spaghetti Detective. So F the cloud, I have my own private cloud on-prem.
Yep.
And I would rather do the same thing with the Bamboo. You know what? Let me run an instance, spin up a Docker container or whatever it may be of the Bamboo cloud software, and let me just do it locally.
Yeah.
And that annoys me that I can't do that.
Yeah. Oh, and that's because they want you to use their systems. Or they just don't want to bother.
What benefit is it to them if I upload everything to them and then it downloads to my printer?
That they want you to be used to doing it. So what I see a potential, so I have no like evidence to support this position. Like this is not something I'm saying is going to happen. This is just something to be mindful of. And it's that Bamboo is in a position where they could make 3D printers go mainstream. That's kind of their goal here. They want a 3D printer in every home, right? Which sounds awesome. Like I think that would be awesome. That would be an awesome thing. The problem is when you bring this up, people say that you want to gatekeep, which is totally untrue.
Sure.
But they want to get their printer in every home. And now 3D printers are everywhere. There's not like a massive, this happened with UAVs, with drones, with DJI. There's no longer a large, vibrant community around do-it-yourself and open source. Right. Now it's just because you can just buy a closed source product that's better than anything you could build with the current open source options. So why bother like wasting money and time developing something when you can just go buy a product? So
why spend 40, 60 hours building a Voron?
Yeah, exactly. Right. When you can just buy their printer, and then once they have that, they'll then be in control of those 3D printers. So even though it sounds like it's cool to centralize manufacturing, they're now in a position where they can require printer registration. They can control what you print. They can view what you print. They can exactly like DJI does. It's exactly the same model.
Or New York State. It's like where they want.
Exactly. So DJI currently with their products, they have their products basically enforce the law for you. Like the products
Correct.
will not let you do certain things because it's against whatever local regulation you have. They can
I
do
trust
exactly the
you.
same thing with printers. It's an exact parallel, just one-on-one. That you can't fly your UAV here. You can't print this particular object because in your state it's banned. Whatever, right?
I trust no Chinese companies.
Right.
Well,
and that's the other thing, and I think you were going to go there, but you didn't say it, is are the Chinese stealing every unique design out there?
That's the other side of the coin. So as far as what you just said, John, Chinese, if you don't need to trust the Chinese company, it doesn't matter, right? Like you don't need to trust Creality. Like you buy their printer and like it doesn't matter. Like you don't need to trust them because it's like what I would call maybe a second tier Chinese company. Like they produce their own product, they market it, but they're doing it in like a traditional Chinese fashion with poor manuals, poor documentation, spaghetti code, hardware that just has no brand consistency, just thrown together and just throwing it out in the market. Like they've been doing that for a long time. Bamboo is like the third generation Chinese company, like DJI, where it's super polished, looks Western, like looks totally Western, and it's very clean, excellent. No Chinglish anywhere. Well, not as much. And then they direct market the company. So it's like that. It's like that third generation of Chinese company. And the problem is, while Creality could care less about what you did with their product, they're just selling a product. You don't need to trust them. Bamboo, on the other hand, has a complete infrastructure like a Western company would, where they try to control their products, just like DJI. So that's why it's so concerning. This is why now you have to trust them, because they're actively trying to continue working with their products after you buy them. Like, as I said, they're not doing this in all cases now. Like I have my P1P and it has no connectivity. They can't do anything with it. However, in the future they could. Just like DJI in the very beginning did not control their products like they do now. That was phased in. I don't know exactly. I mean, 2016 to 2018, probably in that time frame. I mean, somewhere in there. Before 2016, DJI products were pretty open. So it's just something to be very mindful about. This is why I have no Bamboo enthusiasm. Like I recommend the printer. I have no problem with the printer.
Right.
But I see people out there supporting them like there's some awesome company, how they should rise to the top and they deserve all this. Like, no, they're a company producing a product. Buy the product and use it. And if there's a company which morally is very well aligned with your views, they're a good company, kind of in a traditional sense, then I mean, I have no problem supporting them. Like I like those companies. Like if it's a company that I like. But in the case of Bamboo, they're doing all kinds of shady stuff in the background, which is not necessarily in their customers' best interest. So there's no reason to get overly enthusiastic about the company. So
I hear you. And you make me, I really didn't think it through about New York State and, having you do basically a 4473 to get a 3D printer, but they also could, be on the phone with Bamboo and say, hey, by the way, knock this off. Don't let this happen.
Yeah. And the reason it's concerning is not because it's some theoretical thing they could do in the future. It's because right now their infrastructure is in place where they could do this. It's not like it's not some theoretical thing in the future. Now they're not doing it. And I have nothing but circumstantial evidence to point to that they might want to do it. And I might be wrong. Like this might not be their intention. It's just something to think about and when you interact with Bamboo, something to be thinking about, like they might be trying this. And it's really a kind of a more of a cautionary thing. So that's kind of my take on Bamboo. And
so,
yeah,
what benefit is it to Bamboo for me to ship my, sliced object to China and then have them download it to my printer?
They get to see what it is.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like, why?
They're gonna say that it centralizes everything so you can print from anywhere, but we all know.
If they want to block you from printing something, it's essential that they do that, because your printer does not have the hardware it needs to inspect the file and see what it is. They have the hardware in a centralized location.
There's a lot of cost for that infrastructure. Like if I'm printing, stupid dust collectors on the shelf, there's a lot of infrastructure that they have to, allow that to happen, bandwidth, computers, servers that they need to maintain. So per N thousand, bamboo P1Ps or carbons or whatever out there, they have to increase their server farm.
It doesn't matter as long as you're getting that sweet Winnie the Pooh money.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know if you guys get that reference, but
no, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's the same. Bamboo and DJI have so many parallels, and there's both of them. Both of them are funded. State funding with both organizations is happening.
Yeah,
and there's a reason for it. It's not a coincidence.
And Chairman Xi looks like Winnie the Pooh.
I know.
He literally does.
It's
he was the leader of the Communist Party of China, the CCP.
It's a pretty common meme. It's pretty funny. Don't make the joke though while you're in China. Try to just.
No, you will go to a very bad place.
Yeah.
I got banned from a freaking Chinese.
Oh yeah, we're gonna hold on talking about this. I don't know if you know that story.
Which one? Tell it to me. I haven't heard this yet.
Invaders. Yeah, no, I'm gonna hold on talking about. We're gonna talk about on Dark Show tonight.
Oh, okay.
So that's gonna be a teaser. I'll tell you afterwards.
It's out there everywhere now.
Is it? It's out there everywhere. All right. So then we talk about it. So basically, the New York Police? New York State Police?
New York State Police and Invader Zip. Can you please send me a comment for my article, please?
So this is a situation with Zip that I haven't heard of yet.
Yeah. So
is this like a previous thing?
Today, I don't know if it was specifically today. Hold on. Let me see if I have the article
it was
to bring up. And give me a second. I'm going through my mail. And okay, so here it is. And let me bring it up on the screen to present. So share screen.
It's part of my story, but my story is a little bit bigger than just this.
So basically, the state of New York, the NYPD intelligence. Oh, okay. So it's New York Police Department intelligence. Let's see. Where do we have? I think we have.
But this is like a whole Ghost Gun.
Yes.
Article.
It's, So it's whole Ghost Gun identification, the who's who of Ghost Guns, Polymer 80, Glock Store.
Is Invader Zip on the list?
Yes, yeah, on the list.
Yeah. JSD Supply. They got the MUP one there.
I don't think I'm on the list.
Yeah, no, you got to work harder, man. You're not on the list.
That's good.
We got 1776 JSD.
I don't think I am.
Yeah, you gotta up your game, homie.
I guess I gotta. Yeah.
They're even talking, 3D printers and slicers. Oh, here's the one where they're talking about slicers. It's like, are you gonna make them illegal, or it's like when you seize somebody's laptop, if they have slicer software on it, does that make them bad?
I just saw my website.
Did you?
Scroll up. Let's go up a little more. I want to say I did. A little more. There's a web page. Let me see. Wait.
Odyssey.
No, never
mind.
Yeah,
there you are. Yeah.
That's my Odyssey files. Yeah.
Oh shoot! Oh, you made it.
Hey Tim, can you send me a comment for my article that I'll send people to your website?
Rich, if you'll send me a link to this document.
Oh, yeah, I'll send it to you.
Shoot it to my email. I will look through this and see. Yeah, I hadn't even heard of this. I guess I'm kind of under a rock here.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, I didn't realize you were in there. I just Odyssey. I just kind of quick scrolled through.
Oh, I can't.
Here it is.
Let's see.
Yeah, isn't Zip right here? Ghost Guns? No, I know there's where they list websites. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Yeah, so Zip got mentioned. Dark's a little bummed that, DLD
DB firearms, parts dispensed, and Invader. Oh, they got Invader Zip on there. Wow.
Yeah. So
nice.
Mr. Zip is a known suspect, a person of interest.
No,
we should say.
This list says privately designed and manufactured firearms. So this is a list of like parts companies or people who are designing them. Like, are they trying to identify designers? Because that would be kind of concerning. Like, if it's parts companies, that's one thing.
Yeah, it says privately designed and
It's
manufactured
parts.
firearms. Some of these websites. All right. When I saw this, I'm like, are you going to call out Home Depot, Lowe's? Really? Who you? Because if they're showing, steel pipe and end caps, they need to list Home Depot.
Yep. Design firearms. Abe's killing haunts Japan with questions on homemade guns.
Yeah, because he used Invader Zip's design, Defense Distributed's design. Who? Help me out. Whose design was that?
It wasn't. You mean the Japanese guy?
Yeah, is that Gorilla Tape? I mean, is that like Home
it
Depot
was
and Gorilla
totally
Tape?
Improvised. There was no 3D printing involved.
Or are those some 18650 batteries? I mean, should they be illegal also?
I believe it was. Yeah, it was just batteries, filament. I mean, it's sugar powder, probably. Maybe for something from matches. I mean, it's not hard to do at that level of crudeness.
Right, a little bit of fertilizer. Yeah. Oh, and we got a Yankee Boogle in there. I'm waiting for. Oh, there's no super safety.
Good. We don't want that in there.
No super safety. So yeah, I'll send this out to you, man.
Yeah, I would enjoy looking through that and seeing what they're saying.
Yeah, I didn't even realize they had your website. Your Odyssey.
That was Odyssey, yeah.
And it's on its way to you.
All right, I will look that over and send you something, John. But yeah, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I talked to Cody Wilson. He's like, "Yeah, it's great advertisement."
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. When was that released? I did see an uptick in kit orders actually a few days ago, which I didn't correlate.
Let's see if there's a date on this.
Is there a release date?
Apparently, from what I learned, it was written a long time ago, but it was not widely distributed until today.
Okay. It finally got leaked.
Well, it was only like the major case people had it, but then they sent it out to like everyone in NYPD.
Oh, and then of course it got out from there. I see. Yeah, I see.
So, John, can you FOIA this?
You can do an open records request, but they're going to Glomar it.
Mm-hmm.
What's that mean?
We can neither confirm nor deny.
Neither confirm nor deny. Back in the 70s, there was there's actually a Netflix thing about it. But
the Glomar Explorer by Howard Hughes. Yeah, you're not familiar with that?
Explorer.
I Rich explained it. But no, I don't know the details on it.
Go ahead. Rich.
All right. So the Glomar Explorer basically.
By the way, they have the actual. If you go to the Spy Museum in DC, they have a whole display about it.
But when you ask them questions, they won't answer.
So they say we will neither confirm nor deny, and that was a result of the Glomar Explorer. Now the story of the Glomar Explorer is quite interesting. What it was is the CIA worked with Howard Hughes to recover a Russian submarine. So the cover story was that the Glomar Explorer by Howard Hughes was going to recover nodules of silicone or something like that, minerals on the bottom of the ocean. So they had this
magnesia or whatever it is, yeah.
Something. So they had this huge ship built with a moon pool, and basically it looked like an oil rig derrick, but it was a hydraulically actuated arm. So the whole idea was this arm on like an oil rig setup was going to come down, grab the submarine, and pick it up. And it actually fell apart, but they got a large part of it. There have been a number of videos on the topic, but one of the things was they actually recorded film of because they did recover bodies, and to show the Russian USSR, so it was USSR, Soviet Union, that they had clergy on board to handle the remains and give them a proper burial.
And was that video ever released?
Oh yeah. There's a whole bunch of videos on it. So Glomar Explorer, and that's why they came up with the phrase "we can neither confirm nor deny."
So what legal precedent does that phrase have when you're doing a freedom of information request?
Well, they can if it's called a Glomar exception. They don't have to, when you do a freedom of information request, they don't have to turn over everything to you. They can say like there's several different allowed exceptions, and one of the allowed exceptions in this case would be techniques, tactics, and procedures for law enforcement. Law enforcement technique, tactics, and procedures, and that's what I think that they would do. And
Who comes up with these exceptions?
It's part of the Freedom of Information Act.
I see. Okay.
And also they can say, but Freedom of Information Act is more of a federal thing. I think New York has open records request, open records law, but it's almost identical to the Freedom of Information Act law. So they can just say that this is law enforcement sensitive. Can't give it out.
Yeah.
I think New York has I think they have a law enforcement sensitive exception in New York. And on federal level, there's techniques, tactics, and procedures, and then there's like open investigations. They don't have to give it to it, but like law enforcement sensitive in New York is an exception to their law.
I see. So they wouldn't have to give it over. Okay, yeah. So they make it kind of meaningless by adding enough
Correct.
exceptions. They can get around it if they want, if it's convenient for them.
Mm-hmm.
No, they have to prove that it is. So if you have a lawyer, you can file suit and say, "Hey, we want it. We don't agree with that." And the good part about like the Freedom of Information Act, for example, is if they lose, they have to pay the lawyer fee, and there's a set amount of hours.
Really?
I think 24 hours or 26 hours that they pay, and there's a set money. I think it's like $500 an hour they have to pay. So, and that was to cap it, but they set it kind of high. So you get a lot of lawyers that like doing them because if they think they can win, they can put on 2-3 hours of work, send out a letter, like sue, and all of a sudden get paid for like 26 hours. And because that's what the law says they have to pay. So they actually get a lot of money. So that's why it's easy to find. It's not, I wouldn't say it's easy. If you have a good case, you have lawyers that will definitely sue for you.
I see.
Your battery's about to die.
You know why? I think I haven't charged my batteries up. I was using a bunch of them and on that trip, and I still have a few of my cases which aren't full. I think that's what it is. So, but yeah, that's quite interesting. That's a funny document. I know we've had a few other documents like that in the past release, but this one looks like the most comprehensive one I've seen to date.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you going to frame it, show it to your kids?
I might. And well, might be a better one coming on the road, so I don't want to jump the gun too soon. So another note on Fusion here, I've just set up a little finite element analysis test, and the way it works is it uploads your design to their cloud. It does the calculations in the cloud, and then it gives you the results back. That's not very pleasing. I
did see a question here. I'm just
Dark asked if there's any future projects, Mr. Hoffman.
Well, I mean, the problem right now is our current projects. I've been kind of stalled. I got to move forward with my new lower design. I got to get that out. So,
all right, this is going to have to be the final question right here because we got to get out of here. This went by really, really fast.
Yeah,
and we didn't even really dip into the meat on the bone, but
basically just bamboo is all we talked about.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I'll grab a battery as you read that.
What is the difference between a 3D printed firearm in a Bushmaster Carbon 15 or a Professional Ordnance Carbon 15? So I'm not familiar with the Bushmaster or the
I'm not familiar with one.
Carbon Ordnance 15.
So I've never handled the Bushmaster Carbon 15 like in person, but I am somewhat familiar with them. So what is the difference? I mean, the difference here is the Bushmaster Carbon 15 is a has metal components and has carbon fiber composite, which is carbon fibers and resin. It's laid up, and I'm not sure exactly whether it's molded or if it's laid up, but it uses composite components, and a 3D printed part is 3D printed during using FDM 3D printing in most cases.
Yeah. So
completely, I guess.
Carbon fiber, basically anything like fiberglass, carbon fiber, name the fiber composite. It's based on the length of the fibers and the weave, and that's what gives it the strength with some form of epoxy. Whereas when we do something like carbon fiber nylon, you don't have any strands going the entire length of the part. It does give it some strength, but it's not like when you actually have a carbon fiber part or a fiberglass part.
Yeah, exactly. So the carbon fibers in 3D prints do significantly increase the strength and stiffness, but they might have some downsides as well in some cases. So yeah, it's going to be a 3D printed part is not going to be as strong for the same cross section. So 3D printed parts have to be designed completely differently than you design a part. What on earth?
But
so this is
the other problem, of course, is privately manufactured firearms versus filling out a 4473 and buying it from somebody.
You don't have to replace the battery, Tim. You can just talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
We're good.
Just a second. Yeah.
So it's just everybody, the boogeyman, ooh, it's scary that they can actually make a gun at home. It's like, that's right, mofo. I can make a gun at home and I can make as many as I want. And they can't track it. So that's really the difference.
Yeah, and the big difference in 3D printing and doing something with and the whole thing with the 3D printing versus other manufacturing techniques is 3D printing is a lot more accessible. Even as tricky as it is with the little issues you'll have and the spaghetti you'll get, it's much lower cost and easier to do than anything else. Like I always find it funny that people who mention buy a mill and buy a lathe, because there are people who can make incredible things using those machines. I mean, like it's quite mind-boggling. Those people are extremely talented and have spent years, in a lot of cases decades, honing that skill.
And a stupid amount of money.
I have a lathe right back here. This lathe is at this point probably $5,000 to get into it. And I use this on a few specialized little parts because the amount of time it takes to make parts is great. There's a lot of time involved. And the same goes for any kind of traditional machining. If you want to make parts, if you wanted to make resin cast parts, for example, and you don't have 3D printing, you really have to have CNC machining capability to make molds. With 3D printing, you can then make molds and you can do resin cast parts. Actually, quite practically, I've done that I need to work on it some more actually. So there's 3D printing is just a much easier, lower cost, more accessible method, and that's what sets it apart from other manufacturing methods. Really, FDM 3D printing, I should say. Obviously, there are very expensive 3D printing technologies, but that's, if you're wondering like the difference in technology, that's really what sets 3D printing apart. It's not perfect in all cases, but it's in a lot of cases actually, but it's very low cost and accessible. So low scale, all of that. So that's why it's so cool.
Gotcha. All right. With that, Crump, you want to close us out?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for watching. Tim, I need your address too. I want to get you a book out because Tim, you're special. I do think. Okay, you are like probably, I would say, I'm not going to say 3D designer, one of the best gun designers on the planet right now, and I truly believe that.
So I wouldn't say that just because what I'm doing is so basic.
I would definitely say.
No, you have insight. You got skills.
I would
possibly down the road we might have something interesting, but there's been some really incredible designers in the past, which basically impossible to do better. Like the levels.
When people are saying, do not let you deny it.
they're just. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment for sure. But
no, seriously, and
no, we're not blowing smoke.
You're doing a lot for the 3D printing community here, and for the gun community as a whole. And I just want you to know that Rich believes that, I believe that, Dark out there believes that, and I think a lot of people out there believe that. And I just want you to know that, especially at IV8888. A lot of people were talking about your stuff, and a lot of people who had no idea about 3D printing were like, wow, this stuff is freaking really, really cool.
Yeah, that was really it was really cool. It was a cool event. But I do get a lot of support, and that's really awesome. Like I would not be here if I hadn't gotten the engagement I do to like keep me going and keep everything funded. So like it is a very 3D print for the most part, in like 99% of cases, everyone is very positive about like pretty much everything in 3D printed gun, like the space in general. So that has been really cool having so many supportive people, like, you know, customers, people pillar printing stuff. So it is people doing it. It is a really good space to work in. It's very encouraging to work in 3D printed guns. So that's another good aspect of it.
All right, guys, that is it. Follow Flying Rich at Flying Rich on YouTube, Flying Rich Firearms on YouTube, Flying Rich _official on the grams. Tim Hoffman, tell everyone where they can find you. And remember, you cannot put the .com on the end of your website.
Hoffman Tactical, just Google is your friend, actually, in this case. Just
or you can just reverse what we said and
yeah, exactly. But you know, it's Hoffman Tactical. It's easy to find. I mean, right here on YouTube, actually. So yeah, just look it up, and you can't miss it.
All right, and with that, we are out of here. We will be back with Fit and Fire on Monday, and we'll see who else we have for next week. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Buy my goddamn book. Tim, I'm sending you an autograph copy. And Rich, you got to get to work on your book.
Yes. Yeah, now that I don't have a job.
There you go. And with that, we are out of here. Thank you so much, guys. I love you.
Bye, guys.